computer. All right, we are live. So you were just asking a good question about what it means to fine tune a model, correct?
Correct.
So yeah, here I'll pull up a slide on that. But while I'm doing that at a very high level, think of the way that our brains think and make connections. So when you first started med school and someone would say tachypnea, that probably didn't mean anything to you at the time, right?
Right.
But as you ended up going through the training of medical education, you became very aware of that word and it began to form different connections where now as a almost complete full-on DO, which congratulations, uh, that word tachypnea, now it has a bunch of different connections and connotations that you are aware of that may not be the same for other people. So think of that about a few billion times. That is what tuning a model actually does specifically. It's making connections between these different, they call them neurons, but and depending on who you end up asking, but at a very high level, it's the different connections of this network, just like the connections of neurons in our brain that end up getting the signal sent to it, go
Mm-hmm.
along, right? The nodes around VA and
Mm-hmm.
meet an activation threshold or don't based off the strength of that signal. So these inputs end up being brought in. Think of them with our guitar friend here, so ukulele, as
Mm-hmm.
being we are the inputs of how tautly you are tuning the guitar and how hard you're strumming it. Those are the inputs and really the weight you're putting into there. And then
Mm-hmm.
based off of that, you'll end up reaching a net input that either turns on or doesn't. If it turns on, then it ends up actually making that connection. So like on the bottom right here, we have, think of this as another sort of neural network, writing skill, a handsome profile picture, and something having Pokemon. It goes through a forward pass, which is that information going through, and then
Mm-hmm.
it receives a answer of, hey, this is great, or hey, this is crap. And then it does what's called back propagation, which is a fancy way of just saying it goes back and is like, okay, change these things so that way we get more efficiently to the right answer later on.
Oh, okay.
In the same way that once you've tuned a guitar once, you don't have to go through the whole Michigas every single time because it's been tuned, whether it's to the G chord or the C chord or whatever chord. Once you tune it, and even once if you need to change it, once you have that set, that process, it becomes faster because you know exactly what you need to do to get it to exactly the right, or by and large, the right tune that you want it to. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yes, that makes more sense to me. It's similar to how I feel like from attending to attending tells you I have a certain way that I like to do my things. It might still have the same components for how you do a physical exam or you get an H&P from a patient.
Right.
And but overall, however you do the sequence might be different, but the end result is going to ultimately be the same.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right. And it's, yeah, explain any of this stuff. It's about make it simple, knowing it's not simplistic, but it's you don't need to be a rocket scientist to do any of this stuff.
No rocket surgery.
Right? I mean, it's yeah. What was the next question? Fire away.
Um, so I had this thought if this would be something I could realistically ask it. I was just diagnosed with an autoimmune illness, and my loans aren't enough to cover my medical bills. Who should I talk to at my school to figure out funding?
Yeah. So personally, I appreciate you being willing to share or bring up a topic like that because it is that's a I don't remember we getting a class and orientation about that. That's a very difficult thing to have to figure out. Med school is already difficult enough as is. Uh, so for that, I'll do really two things because the challenge, of course, or with anything is how specific do we go and what is too specific and where do we go for the threshold of privacy versus making sure we're getting good information. So this is a service that I use called Perplexity. That's
Mm-hmm.
an AI term. I think it's, I'll be honest, I can't remember what it means, but
Perplexing.
can you go ahead and ask your question and I'll just type it out. I'll dictate or you dictate and I'll be your typey monkey.
Okay. I was just diagnosed with an autoimmune illness, and my loans aren't enough to cover my medical bills. Who should I talk to at my school to figure out funding?
Okay. Oh, and let's hypothetically, what do we want to say the name of a medical school? You can just pick one at random or
Uh,
whatever one you want to pick.
UT Southwestern.
Start. Here, let's do a little zoom in action here. So what we're seeing in real time is what's a base model. I think I'm using Claude 3 Opus from Anthropic is acting as an agent to query the internet and implements called retrieval augmented generation or RAG. So that way it's giving an answer that's also having sources, not just blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, can you read that by chance?
Yes, it says, so first option, it says to contact the Office of Student Financial Aid. Um, they administer scholarships, grants, and loans for medical students and can help you explore options for additional funding given your circumstances. Their knowledgeable staff works directly with students to help secure financial aid. Okay. Um, Second option, make an appointment with a financial aid counselor, important, to discuss your specific situation. They can provide personalized advice on financing options, budgeting, managing your medical school costs in light of your increased medical expenses. They also give the hours of the financial aid office, which is pretty impressive. Um, Third option, speak with your academic advisor or the dean of student affairs. In addition to financial guidance, they may be able to provide accommodations or flexibility with your academic schedule as you navigate your health challenges. Having a strong support system at the school is important. Fourth option, look into the school's emergency loan funds or special scholarships. Some may be need-based or designated for students facing hardship. For example, there are, I'm going to butcher this, Marge Beret Society scholarships available to students based on both academic performance and financial need. I was not aware of that. Option 5, utilize the resources at the Student Wellness and Counseling Center. In addition to personal counseling, they may be able to provide referrals to outside organizations that offer financial assistance to students with medical conditions. That's a pretty impressive list.
So, and it has 20 sources here, and these are the sources it just pulled. So I also was not aware of that. What is that? The Marge Beret? Berry?
No,
Yeah.
Beret, yeah, never heard of it.
So let's see. Physical
Sperma.
therapy. So it's part of the UT Southwest Medical Center system, but looks like it's
Okay.
actually for physical therapy students. So not 100, which is why we always want to make sure, right, that we look at the source.
Right.
But
Department specific.
the fact that it does end up having the ability to go through in real time and bring up all these things. Uh, what about as a DO? I think it'd be good to see what a osteopathic school might end up having. What's I'll ask the same question again here.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, let's just and whim. The medical school is the was it incarnate word? How do you spell that?
You got it. As the University of the Incarnate Word.
Ah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's
of the
what
Incarnate Word School of Osteopathic
okay.
Medicine. Yes.
See. Probably not. Well, I'll put all of them because it's
Yeah.
right, leaving no stone unturned. See. I see that's something I'm working on getting integrated into the build that I'm having is that little twisty spirally thing and it's going while it's thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All
And
right.
I don't want you to feel like you have to read through all that. It's just
Yeah, no, the first thing I was gonna say is the that name at the top, that email is accurate. He is like the new he deals with the financial aid department. He is part of
okay.
that department now. So that I would say that is accurate. So
Okay.
mhm.
Good. I'm curious at this actually have you this AbbVie immunology
Oh,
is that something you're aware of?
I any of these scholarships I've never
Yeah.
heard of. Uh-uh.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. There's a couple of them here. Oh, geez. Uh, huh,
Dealing with
immunology.
one-on-one. Wow. $15,000 scholarship is a pretty big chunk.
That is yeah, it's not small.
Mm-mm.
Uh,
Wow.
okay. And, right, and
Mhm.
I have no doubt that loans have been we look into Staten Family Scholarship at we need a college. Hmm.
Diseases of the blood and immune system. Huh. No idea. The other thing I was gonna say, where number 3, where it talks about banner web is what we use for the financial aid offer. That is a system we use. So that piece of information is accurate, like where you would go and accept or decline your loan.
Okay.
Um, how specific it is to, hey, how do you help me with this?
Right.
Not
Yeah, for
necessarily good or
sure.
bad, but more neutral. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, with this, I'm curious because the nice thing too with this particular service is that it also can look up video and search. Well, I don't think
Mm-hmm.
images is necessarily going to be as necessary here. And this is actually using a different model. I think what I put onto it, I think Stable Diffusion for the image piece, while also still using Claude's uh, Opus for the searching piece
Mm.
from like basic querying the internet. So it's not just one model doing everything. Think of it more as uh, like a band, keeping with the music metaphor of one model is good at playing the guitar, one is on vocals, one is on the drums, and together they all work together to make a fully integrated service. Although
Yeah.
apparently it is thinking really hard about it right now, so maybe the internet is slow.
Maybe. Good job, little model. I appreciate all your. Mm-hmm.
Which again, like it's I don't know, the things I've seen that people are like, oh, well, it didn't do this, it didn't do that. It's like, yeah, this ain't magic. They're still just like anything, still prone to have a problem.
Right. And but that query is actually pretty good, I would say. Because a few years ago when I went to my financial aid office, and it was in the middle of COVID too, so I couldn't meet with
Oh,
her in
geez.
person. Right. So I went to her and I just got out of the hospital. I had like $100,000 bill, and but they hadn't knocked it down yet. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna pay this. I'm gonna croak. Then they came back and they're like, we'll give you a discount down to like 9,000. Insurance paid a pretty significant amount, but I still had to pay 3 grand. Right. Um, I made enough to put pepperonis on my pizza. So, and we just got a disbursement for financial aid. So there was no way I was going to get like a sliding scale to the hospital. Uh, but the only options they give is like to increase the loan amount. So you submit all your EOBs, all that kind of stuff. And you increase the cost of attendance. The same thing like you're doing for childcare, for educational expense, whatever.
Right.
But to know that there's actually some type of grants or scholarships that you can apply for is good
Mhm.
to know, that aren't necessarily department specific or institution specific, because Lord knows we don't have anything like that. We're not big enough for something like that.
And what I think it's too is because typically we find with a lot of AI models is that for a model to do something on the, we call it zero shot, or basically the first time of like getting everything is rare.
Mm-hmm.
It's based off of what it was trained on slash what are you actually asking it.
Right.
And so with that being said, it's like what I didn't show into there, but is that you can
Mm-hmm.
have follow-on questions and you can actually ping it of, okay, you've given me this, now drill down further onto this specific thing because
Ah,
it's
I see.
holding on to that information. So like actually even right here, I can just show of for since it was still apparently thinking about
Mm-hmm.
the videos, or maybe there isn't a video, but so this was the
Hmm.
answer it gave, and then right here you've got so you can pick one of, actually I'll just pick this top one
Okay.
here, what financial aid options are available for med students. And again, it's still registering based off of that initial question. And it gave that follow-up of like, oh, this is a
Oh.
common follow-up that someone may end up having. So that way you're not having to wonder, oh no, how do I ask it? What do I, it's like, oh, we're gonna help you by giving things that are optimized to keep along this track. So you're not just diverging or going down a rabbit hole. And
Right.
so, right, because it's a common question of like, okay, you've told me how do I apply or what are the options? And now it's how do I apply? A very common follow-up question.
Right. Exactly. Um, it even talks about, it talks about HBSC. Yeah. Private loans. Yeah. Private would be a last resort. Need-based grant, even grants, like to know about that there are grants out there, I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Um, cool beans.
Yeah. Well, and the last thing with that is I was going to show is actually, I'll pull this up here on
Mm-hmm.
the right hand side. So, and this is not very, this is not very high end, but trying to keep the energy bill low. So there's actually multiple platforms online that you can use to
Mm-hmm.
take models, and part of what we're doing actually is we're taking these models and we're making them accessible and usable and being able to tune them at cost and also be able to have them as like a menu. So one of the
Yeah.
main ones is called Olama.
Oh, more llamas.
More llamas, I know, right? But it's meant to be open llama. So
Oh.
there's Microsoft's 5.3 model. That's about
Mm-hmm.
2.3 gigs. A tiny dolphin model, which is less than a gig. So that can 100%, like all three of these can run your phone, easy peasy.
Wow.
And so what we do is we do llama run, and we'll do tiny llama because tiny llama is not uncensored. Tiny dolphin is censored.
What does that mean?
If it's uncensored, it means you can ask it just about anything and it'll tell you. Even if it's like,
Oh.
hey, how do I make drugs.
Oh, okay. So you mean censored in the classic form of censored. Okay.
Yes, but that being said, because it's not directly tied to the internet, and also because it is a small model,
Mm-hmm.
in my own testing of it, it doesn't always give a very good response, even if it can sometimes give out information like, oh, hypothetically, you would take water and like boil this and put that in. It's not telling people, oh, you need to go to this address to get these things and do all that. It's
Oh.
a bit more
Huh.
limited. So what I'll do though is I'll post that same question
Mm-hmm.
and see how it answers. Oh, just had a I think it froze for a second here.
No, you're good. The snake of death.
Having a bit of a think,
Mm-hmm.
but sure it's some of this like Spokane internet being terrible.
Is all the internet terrible?
So let's see. I'll try just starting it up again. Okay. Oh yeah, geez, it's not even like I think just between running the video,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Oh.
having a bit of a difficult time, it would seem, which
Wonder if I
is
turned off my
good
video.
here. I wonder if I turn off mine. Let's see. Yeah,
Even then.
interesting. See, this is also part of why it's good to test these things out because now we'll know that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, not a big deal.
So if you try to, oh, bye.
Yeah, it's literally yeah, you just run it with that. I don't know, CD and just a few different of a few of the different models I was testing out, but no worries. We can
Oh.
just we'll count that as a hard lesson learned. Oh, geez. Why is my thing being there we go. All right. Okay. With that little kerfuffle all done, what other questions do you have? What sorts of things that Rolls Royster, I don't care how technical, non-technical, whatever. And I want to be able to explain it to you in one sentence.
Hmm. Um. hmm. So I know that some of the bigger medical organizations are saying, well, or there's a debate that's ongoing. Should we make our own data set to train the model per institution? Should there be a centralized data set? And what are the pros and cons between the two?
Hmm. So
Um,
what's the question?
so the question is, would it hmm, would it be better to have like each individual institution make their own data set to train a model that anybody can use, or would it be better for there to be a centralized data set? Say for this hospital is doing this, should there be? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, short answer is I think that there should be a national standard on optimized ways to build training data sets for privacy, security, and efficient energy use. But that needs to be with the intent of giving institutions the ability to make their own data sets as the primary, with a secondary being there can be national level or regional level data sets that are made reliably with the backing of institutions or larger bodies to help those organizations that may not have the resources or the knowledge and really giving them a leg up to catch up to folks who are already doing that.
Okay. The follow up would be for quality control. So who or what would be doing like the quality control of these data sets to make sure that they're meeting those guidelines, to say there becomes a guideline, in order to make sure that the content is correct, but also that it still maintaining privacy, still has the same equity, right?
Absolutely. One way, and I think this is probably the simplest, but I'm not sure if folks would end up going for it, but I do think it's the simplest, is that people just end up putting all of their data sets on Hugging Face.
Mm-hmm.
So like this data set here is from Yale,
Mm-hmm.
with it's a partnership between them and like two other labs in Europe. The nice thing is that it has, I think it might not be on this one, but oh yeah, so you can request a DOI. So on Hugging Face, you had the ability to make a digital object identifier, which then makes that data set permanent, and
Mm-hmm.
also a reference that can't just be deleted. And then it
Okay.
has metrics of, it tells you, okay, how many times it's downloaded, the models that have used it to train, and then it has all of the wickets of where it came from, what the knowledge cutoff is, because the President Biden's executive order on safe, secure, reliable AI requires that all federal agencies have a register for AI models. So too, I think that also means that there'll be a register that's collected, because any model that's used is going to be trained on data, of data sets that will have to be on some kind of national level registry, because if they're medical, they could be used for harm as much as good.
Right. So that would mean at a later point that there would be a different platform in addition to Hugging Face that would be a registry for other stuff that's used on like for national type of organization, right?
Probably, and there already are some, there's different data repositories, but for the standpoint of just, let's keep it in the realm of medical education first.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but there will be at a place where everybody can access these things, and that will act as a registry by itself, or just, hey, this is the standard.
I see. Cool. Um, hmm. Trying to think. So, of the current models that are, at least to me, I feel like there are more and more every time I open a browser. There's like MetaVest, there's like Llama 10,000, there's Tiny Dolphin, there's, we're just throwing animals. And who knows, there might be like a hugging model. I don't know. But how do you go about finding the right one to use to train
Yeah,
even?
yeah, great question. So me personally, I go to Hugging Face because that's its purpose, is a sandbox for hosting models openly. And so actually I'll just do this. And so when you go onto there, it's huggingface.co, not .com. You
Mm-hmm.
go to models, and right, like this number is silly. But on here, you can click most likes, most downloads, and just at a high level to be able to get those. But then on the left, you can actually look and say, okay, I know that I'm having a text generation model. So I click text generation, because right of like, you think of your regular chatbot, and that will distill this list. So it was 360,000, still a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can filter of, I want it to be medical. And now there's 199.
Okay.
And but with that, so let's say, let's do because Apple just made one recently called Open Elm.
I saw that.
And so you can click on that and it'll give you what's called a model card, and it'll tell you about everything with that particular model, tell you what to do with it, tell you all the different benchmarks it was on, which a lot of them are, they're single data points and they're not the end all be all, but they're just they're evaluations the community has been using to showcase different capabilities. You can see what the actual weights of the model, like this is the actual, when you think of the model, this is what it actually is. It's a bunch of different files that
Mm-hmm.
you see these like safe tensors. These are the main weights of the model. And then there's a couple of Python files because mostly they're all written in Python, the programming language. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's the license, there's like what you read about it, which is basically the model card, and then some configuration. And like that's it. Like this is the AI
Okay.
model, what you're looking at right here.
Hmm. So just looking at this screen, what should I, so how should I, when I look at this, how should I be reading this? So what do these
Yeah,
different tabs mean?
absolutely.
What's important, what's insignificant?
Absolutely. So starting from top to bottom, left to right, you want to know who made the model because right. So let's there was a model called, was it Falcon ago, and it was known as being very fast when it first came out. It was also made by the UAE, United Arab Emirates, was the country of origin for that model.
Hmm.
That model had certain dispositions about certain things, like we'll just say the value or what women should be doing on a regular basis. It had a
Okay.
UAE perspective versus an American perspective, just as because it reflects the culture that it was the culture and then reflects the data it's trained on.
Right.
Um, so you want to know who made it, then you want to know like obviously the name, but with it you'll typically see the number of parameters, which also denotes the size of the model. So the fact that this is 270M, that's 270 million parameters, which
Million.
a
Oh.
typical model now of like a medium to large size would be 8 billion. So this is tiny in comparison. So which is again why when I say you can run this like on your phone, this is very efficient to be able to run on that. And then it'll tell you on top here, so this is the text generation model. It's a transformer. It's saved with this file type of safe tensors, which is very compressed and more secure. This is the family that it's in. I'm actually not sure what custom code means. So I'll have to look into that. I that answer. This is the paper that it was made, or the art that's put on archive. And then this
Okay.
is the license, because pretty much every model that's coming from a company has some kind of license. It's like Llama 3 from Meta has a custom Llama 3 license. Apple has this license, which reading through it, it effectively is like it's called the MIT license, which is pretty broad. Um, hold on, getting a phone call here. Oh, it's my
Mm-hmm.
wife. I'll give her a call back in a second. Plus, I've already taken up more of your time than is necessary.
No, no,
But
no. You're fine.
this is the license, and so it's not just like, oh, they're putting it out in open source, so you can do whatever with it. No, 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 it's Apple, so they're still gonna make sure they're protecting
Right.
themselves. And again, Meta's license, if you actually read through Llama 3, like or through you have to request to get access to Llama 3, even though it is open and you
Oh,
can get it, which I've done. And then you have to like
wow.
you basically you agree to all their things, which
Oh.
basically amounts to, hey, don't do anything nefarious with it. If you do, that's on you. And if you get to a certain user base in using our model, we're gonna renegotiate what we're like our conversation here, which basically is, hey, if you get 700,000 users with whatever you're doing, we want to talk to you slash
Mm-hmm.
maybe acquire you slash who knows, right?
Let's recruit you.
Like
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, hey, yeah, like I'll be acquired. I'm down with that. I don't work. Uh, so at a very high level, who made it? What's the size of it?
Okay.
What kind of model is it? And again, most of them they're going to be transformers, but just more so it's like, okay, is it text? Is it video? Is it audio? Is it when you say multimodal, does that mean it's multiple thing or multiple data types? Uh, these are just more if you want to, you can clone that. So, but you not something most people need
Mm.
to do. You can request the digital object identifier. I will add things as like a to my collection, which is just me putting a consolidated, basically list of links to different
Mhm.
things, so I can whether it's papers, models, data sets, whatever, or I can
Yeah.
report it. It's like, hey, this is a bad model. It's doing bad things. Report it.
Red flag.
You can train it. I train everything on my own systems with my own protocols, so I don't have to spend money because neither of these are free, at least at scale.
Mm.
So that's very expensive very quickly. And then
Right.
this is how you use the model, like that model in, it's called Transformers. It's a library that you use with Python. So that's how you would
Oh.
use that for fine tuning or training or deployment or inference or whatever. It's
Yeah.
all part of that. And
Interesting.
then reading through it again at that without you don't need to not every model card is going to be as like high end, but again, this is Apple we're talking about here. So a lot of this is just like code telling you, and a lot of it is being like Python. So this is saying you're going to, right, like clone this repository here, and you're going to check out this section here. And again, most people are not going to need to get this level because this is all in the back end of you're putting a model into uh, an application to power it, like that perplexity we were just using. You don't like
Mhm.
this is all the stuff that's going in the back end behind that. Most people do not need to interact with this level. But again, it's important that people see that all this information is there. It's just for the uninitiated, you're like, where do where do I begin to look? Which is
Right.
normal, right? That's it's not an intelligence thing. It's a, hey, this is very new. Uh, how do I even like how do I navigate this?
Mhm.
So hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, I see another model that's from potentially a company that I'm like, oh, okay, they make reputable products. It's also 270 million size. How could I compare the two to say like, good, not so good? Um,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. And the kind of last thing to that, what I'll show is, where is it? So I put out a video a couple days ago about this open medical LLM leaderboard.
Oh.
So this actually is a bunch of different organizations, some of them research based, some of them just rando people, some of them businesses who are putting out medical based models and checking them on these different benchmarks.
Hmm.
And it's got some of the medical community all flustered with like, oh well, these benchmarks aren't valid and they're not helpful. It's like, well, yes, right, and but it's also to understand that people like a ranking. We love a
Right.
ranking.
Oh yes, of course. It's all numbers, 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 numbers.
So if you can make a model do something at a very high level, if you're number one, probably some validity with that, but it's also begs the question of like why and how. And
Mhm.
then there's
Yes.
also the open LLM leaderboard, which is just all the open models that are on here. And let's see. Oh yeah, right now, what is this? SF Foundation. I don't even know who is that.
San Francisco. I don't know.
Yeah, some again, they're not always gonna be great about putting their information on here. Mistral AI, they're number two, four, five, six, seven, eight. So this is a French company, Mistral. Uh, they have their model here. It's been downloaded 37,000 times. It's Transformer, sensors, 5 languages. That's pretty cool. This is the
Hmm.
license. Much more. Apache 2 is a very relaxed license. It basically says, hey, do whatever. Like, just don't, you know, yeah, whatever.
Here's your license for just don't do anything illegal.
I mean, it's basically just, hey, it's uses here it is as is, and you know, yeah, like
Hmm.
we're not at fault if you do something stupid.
I
So,
see.
but which is interesting because right, with how many people are very stringent about the IP or intellectual property. But so
Mm.
again, this model
Right.
card is different than the Open Elm Apple model card. And this one will tell you the different spaces on Hugging Face, which are basically just different. People will take the model and they'll put it onto this interface that you can actually play with. And so this is that
Huh.
same model being used in real time. And you can just, what is the meaning of life?
But when you query here, it's not costing you money.
Uh, it depends. So good question.
Oh.
So sometimes it can, but there's a free tier where you're running just off a couple of different, like a couple of CPU grade processors. But if you're running on, say, like multiple GPUs, which you can do here, you can pay for that, and slash keeping it on persistently, that does cost a little bit of money. It's usually pretty like 3 cents an hour, but I think
Okay.
if you're running 100 instances of that,
Oof.
even if it is 3 cents an hour, which that's not typical if people run that many, but just right. So I am very stringent about, because it's very easy to misclick or to, oh, we're
Right.
just gonna, and then suddenly you're like, yeah,
Mm-hmm. Whole savings goes kaput. I hear you.
yeah. But so with any of these, it's just, to me, the way I use these is, oh, this is interesting. This model or this company made this thing. I don't really
Mm-hmm.
put a lot of stock into it because you can gamify these rankings. All these things up here, these are just the different benchmarks, and there's a paper associated with all of them, at least one paper. And then these
Oh,
are
okay.
uh, different variables or different components of a model, uh, to include what, like how precise is it, how many parameters it has. Like typically, again, right? So like billions of parameters is typical, not million. So that OpenM was very tiny.
Mm-hmm.
And then what sorts of architecture, things like that. But that at a very high level, just know that people are constantly, this leaderboard's constantly changing. People are
Mm-hmm.
constantly trying to improve it. So, right, they can, because if you can say, I'm number one on the Hugging Face leaderboard, there are thousands of models on here. So that can be an indicator that you're doing at least, even if you're
Something right.
going through kind of some corners, you're probably doing at least something. You at least know what you're doing to be able to get to that level, which is a
Right.
skill just by itself.
Oh yeah. I don't doubt that for a
But
minute.
yeah, but also it's can be just random what a model ends up doing. And people, you'll test it on all these different things, and then somebody will ask it something, and it'll give an answer that you just didn't predict.
And it'll be like unga bunga, and you're like, sir, you realize we studied last night? And it's like,
And
no, no, no.
and you hear about people doing people who like have never had a problem in their entire lives, and then suddenly one day they just snap. And
Oh,
not that the model that's what's happening, but just right. You
right.
think of like,
All of a
oh, this
sudden.
person's typically this, and it's like, oh, they made a boo boo. It's like, oh, what? It's like, yeah, th- these are made by people. People make
Mm-hmm.
mistakes. Things that people make mistakes.
It happens.
Yeah, we don't condone it. We also just don't let our frontal lobe atrophy because, oh, the AI will do it. It's like,
Yeah. Let's yeah. Let's flex the muscle so it doesn't disappear.
yeah. All right. Oh goodness, I have taken up so much of your time. I
Fine.
appreciate you tremendously, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll throw this up on the YouTubes, and hopefully the intent here is that folks can see, get a view of just some of the things that models can do that students are using them to do, and really get the benefit of get fast feedback as a way to help people kind of navigate their own things that they're working through.
Cool. Love it.
All right. I'll catch you on the flip side.
Bye.
Bye.